In the darkest hours of night, when your screen is the only light you see, have you ever noticed something different? A movement in the reflection? A shadow that shouldn't be there? A presence that makes you want to turn the brightness up, just to be sure you're truly alone? You're about to experience 3 tales that explore our most primal fear, the dark. But these aren't ordinary horror stories. These are black screen narratives, stories meant to be experienced in complete darkness, with only the glow of your screen as company. Tonight, you'll hear about a phone call that should never have been possible, a mysterious app that only works at 3:33 a.m., and a security guard who discovered why some cameras should never be watched. Each story is true, at least that's what the witnesses claim. I suggest you dim your lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't look too long at your own reflection in the dark screen between stories. You've been warned. The call from downstairs. Did you know that 68% of people report experiencing unexplained phenomena in complete darkness? Most brush it off as their imagination. I used to be one of them. Until last Tuesday. There's something uniquely terrifying about a black screen, isn't it? When you're staring into nothing, your mind starts to fill in the gaps. That's what happened to me during the longest phone call of my life. I was working late from my home office upstairs. You know how it gets with deadlines. The house was empty. My wife was visiting her sister for the weekend. Around 11 p.m., my phone rang. The caller ID showed home landline kitchen. We have a landline downstairs that we never use. It came with our internet package, and we just never bothered to disconnect it. I stared at my phone screen, watching it light up with each ring. 4 rings, 5 rings, 6. Something compelled me to answer. Hello? My voice sounded smaller than I intended. Nothing but static at first, then barely audible. Honey, can you come downstairs? I need help with something. It was my wife's voice, except it couldn't be. She was 3 states away. I'd spoken to her on her cell phone just 2 hours ago. Who is this? I demanded, but my voice cracked. It's me, silly. I came home early to surprise you. The power's out down here, and I can't find the circuit breaker. Can you come help? It sounded exactly like her. The same slight southern lilt, the way she always calls me silly. But something was off. The voice was too practiced, too measured, like someone trying very hard to get every syllable right. I sat in my dark office, grip tightening on my phone. The power wasn't out. I could see my computer's LED lights glowing, and our circuit breaker was in the garage, not the kitchen. Just come downstairs, the voice said again. I made your favorite dinner. My wife's laugh followed, but it was wrong, like someone playing a recording at half speed. Then I heard it. In the background of the call, barely audible, the sound of something heavy being dragged across our kitchen tile. I'll be right there, I lied, my thumb hovering over the end call button. No, stay on the line, the voice snapped, all pretense of being my wife gone. It was guttural now, hungry. Stay on the line and listen. The dragging sound got louder, wet smacking noises joined it, then breathing, not human breathing. It was too rapid, too shallow, like a dog panting after a long chase. I ended the call. For 3 hours I sat in my dark office, listening to the landline ring over and over downstairs. My cell phone stayed dark and silent. When dawn finally broke, I crept downstairs with a baseball bat. The kitchen was spotless. The landline sat in its cradle, exactly where it always was. But the call log showed 1 outgoing call at 11 p.m., lasting 6 minutes. I called our phone company later that day. According to their records, our landline service had been disconnected 3 months ago due to an electrical fault. My wife came home that Sunday as planned. I told her everything. She was understandably skeptical until she checked her call history. She hadn't called me at all that night. She'd been in a movie theater with her sister. We moved out the following week, but sometimes late at night, my phone still rings. The caller ID always shows home landline kitchen. I never answer anymore, but I know it's still there, waiting, practicing her voice until it gets it just right. If your phone rings tonight, check the caller ID carefully. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying things happen when you're alone in the dark, staring at a bright screen, waiting to hear a familiar voice. 3:33. Research shows that 3:33 a.m. is when most people report waking up to unexplained phenomena. Scientists call it coincidence. I call it an invitation. A black screen can hide so much, yet reveal even more, like when your phone screen goes dark and you catch a reflection that shouldn't be there. That's how it started for me, with a reflection and an app I never downloaded. I'm a pretty heavy sleeper, so when I woke up at exactly 3:33 a.m. last month, I knew something was wrong. My phone was glowing on my nightstand, which was strange because I always put it on Do Not Disturb. The screen showed an app I'd never seen before, just a black icon with no name. The display showed it had been running for 33 minutes. When I tried to close it, my phone's camera activated instead. In the darkness of my room, the screen was like a black mirror. That's when I saw her, a young girl, maybe 7 or 8, standing behind my bed. She wasn't reflected in any other surface in my room, just my phone screen. She wore a white nightgown, and her dark hair hung in wet strands around her face. I tried to turn around, but my body wouldn't move. I could only watch through my phone as she slowly raised her head. Her eyes were filmed over, like those of a dead fish, but they tracked my movements perfectly. "You opened it," she whispered, her voice coming through my phone's speakers. "You weren't supposed to open it yet." My fingers trembled as I tried to turn off my phone, but it wouldn't respond. Instead, the camera switched to front-facing mode. Now I could see my own face, pale and terrified, but something was wrong. My reflection was moving a fraction of a second too late, like a delayed video feed. The girl appeared behind my reflection, her dead eyes now level with mine. "The app only works at 3:33, she said, "but now that you've opened it." Her reflection reached toward my reflection's throat. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and fell silent. When I finally got the courage to retrieve it the next morning, the mysterious app was gone. My phone worked perfectly normal, except for one thing. Now, every photo I take has a subtle delay. Just long enough to catch movements I didn't make, shadows that shouldn't be there. The girl hasn't appeared again, but sometimes, when I check my phone at night, I catch a glimpse of wet footprints in the background of my screen getting closer each time. Last night, I woke up at 3:33 a.m. again. My phone was on my nightstand, even though I'd left it charging in the kitchen. The screen was black, but I could see her reflection clearly now, standing right beside my bed. She smiled, showing gray teeth. "Ready to open the app again?" I keep my phone in a locked drawer now, but every morning at 3:33 a.m. I hear it vibrating, waiting. Sometimes, technology connects us to things we were never meant to contact. So the next time you check your phone in the dark, look carefully at your reflection. Is it really moving when you move? The night shift. Studies show that 92% of night shift workers report experiencing paranormal activity during their shifts. They're the lucky ones. They survive to report it. Sometimes, the scariest things happen when you're staring at nothing at all, when the darkness is so complete that your eyes start playing tricks on you. At least, that's what I told myself during my last night as a security guard at Oakwood Storage Facility. The job was simple: monitor the security cameras from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. The facility had 24 cameras, but camera 17 was special. It pointed at a corridor that, according to the building plans, didn't exist. My supervisor told me to ignore camera 17. "It's a glitch in the system," he said. "Just don't look at it too long." But when you're alone for 8 hours with nothing but surveillance feeds for company, you start to notice things. Camera 17 showed a long, dark corridor with a single door at the end. Most nights it was completely still. But every so often around 3 a.m., the door would open slightly. Never enough to see inside, just a crack. Last Tuesday I broke protocol. I stared at camera 17 for my entire shift. The door stayed closed for hours, until suddenly at 3:17 a.m. it began to open. This time, it swung wide, the corridor filled with a pale, pulsing light. In the doorway stood a figure in a security guard's uniform. It looked exactly like me, down to the coffee stain on my sleeve, but its movements were wrong, jerky, like a marionette. It turned to face the camera and waved. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Come join your shift change." I looked away from the screen, heart pounding. When I looked back, the other me was closer to the camera, its face now visible. Its eyes were just empty sockets, leaking a black fluid that looked like oil. Another text: "You've been watching us for so long. It's our turn to watch you." The figure stepped closer, its movements now smoother, more natural, more like mine. With each step, I felt a strange pulling sensation, like something was trying to drag my consciousness through the screen. My phone kept buzzing. "You're in the wrong monitoring room. The real shift is through here. We've been waiting for a new guard." The figure was right up against the camera now, its empty sockets filling the screen. I could smell oil and rot coming through the ventilation system. That's when the power went out. In the total darkness, I heard footsteps in the corridor outside the monitoring room. Slow, measured steps, accompanied by the squelch of wet shoes on linoleum. I ran. Behind me, camera 17's screen flickered back to life, showing an empty monitoring room with a single figure in a security guard uniform, watching the cameras. Watching me. I quit that night. My supervisor wasn't surprised. "Camera 17 gets everyone eventually," he said. "At least you made it longer than the last guy." They hired my replacement the next day. Sometimes I drive past the facility at night and look up at the monitoring room window. There's always someone in there, watching the cameras. They look just like me, down to the coffee stain on their sleeve. If you work the night shift, maybe take a closer look at your security cameras. Are you watching them, or are they watching you? You've made it through all 3 tales of darkness. But before you turn your lights back on, ask yourself, how many screens are you surrounded by right now? Your phone, your computer, your television. Each one becomes a black mirror in the dark, a potential doorway. Perhaps you'll think twice next time you see a phone call from an impossible number, or wake up at exactly 3:33 a.m., or catch movement in your screen's reflection that doesn't quite match your own. Because the truth is, these stories aren't really about the dark at all. They're about what the darkness reveals. The things that are always there, watching and waiting behind every black screen, simply hoping you'll notice them. And now that you know what to look for, they know you're watching too. If you survived these tales of digital darkness, make sure to like and subscribe for more horror stories. Share your own black screen encounters in the comments below. Just remember, some of those who comment might not be who they claim to be. Sleep well if you can, and maybe leave a light on tonight.